So, millions of people recently watched that viral footage of the abandoned Japanese macaque.
Oh, Punch. Yeah.
Right, Punch. And, seeing him cling to that stuffed toy, people saw this profound human tragedy. But biologically speaking, we really have to ask, does our global fascination with him stem from a genuine, shared physiological reality? Or, are we simply projecting our own complex emotional narratives onto a highly successful instinctual survival strategy?
Yeah, it's a huge question.
Right, and I will be arguing that this viral connection actually exposes our shared evolutionary wiring for attachment and resilience.
Well, and I contend that this whole phenomenon actually highlights our distinctly human drive for meaning-making. It demonstrates how we use a theory of mind to project this epic narrative onto an animal that is, frankly, simply operating in the present moment.
Okay, but let's look at the underlying hardware first, right? Punch relying on that toy isn't a metaphor, it is an endocrine response.
Sure.
When an infant mammal is separated from its mother, cortisol levels just spike drastically. Clinging to a surrogate triggers somatic sensory receptors, which release oxytocin to actively downregulate the amygdala's panic response.
Right, the basic neurochemistry.
Exactly. We share that exact same neurochemical pathway. So the raw drive for comfort and safety is a physiological fact, not some projection.
The hormonal cascade is undeniably similar, yes. But equating the release of oxytocin with the human experience of abandonment, well, that misses the critical cognitive layer.
How so?
Well, when humans face rejection, our highly developed prefrontal cortex forces us to ruminate. We loop past traumas, we construct a continuous identity. We ask, why was I left behind?
Punch, on the other hand, lacks that specific neurological structure for, episodic time travel. He processes immediate environmental feedback completely without the burden of an ego.
I hear the distinction you're making about rumination, but does the absence of an existential crisis make his resilience any less profound?
It makes it different.
I'd argue it's like a thermostat. When the environmental temperature drops, like when he's suddenly isolated, the physiological furnace kicks on to prevent freezing. That stuffed toy is simply the heat source, fulfilling a mechanical deficit to return his nervous system to homeostasis. We don't really need a complex cognitive layer to recognize that fundamental drive to re-regulate.
See, calling it a mechanical deficit is exactly my point, though. It is a thermostat. But humans don't watch Punch and see a thermostat resetting. We see a protagonist overcoming adversity. Right, people love an underdog.
Exactly. Look at how people reacted to the macaque social friction in those clips, the shoving and smacking.
Oh, the comments were wild.
Right? In macaque society, that physical correction is purely functional learning to establish a rigid hierarchy. It maintains troop stability. But when we watch it, our evolutionary software just misfires.
Misfires how, exactly? You mean because we immediately label the other macaques as bullies?
Yes, exactly. Early humans developed this hypersensitive theory of mind to predict predator behavior and navigate complex tribal politics. It is an evolutionary advantage for us to assign motive to actions. So we watch an older macaque establish a boundary, and we instantly construct a victim and villain narrative. We're applying a moral framework to a strictly biological mechanism.
But aren't you entirely discounting the viewer's empathy there? Yes, we might over-narrativize the hierarchy, but the core reason millions connected with Punch wasn't because we wanted to play referee.
Well, it played a part.
Sure, but it was really a visceral recognition of vulnerability. Even if our prefrontal cortex adds a layer of narrative, the physiological stress of isolation, that freezing temperature from the thermostat, is identical. Our empathy is firing precisely because we recognize a shared biological state.
We recognize the state, yeah, but we completely alter the context. Where Punch adapts based strictly on immediate sensory input, human awareness utterly transforms the experience of stress.
Because of our foresight?
Right. Because we can conceptualize the future. We possess the agency to consciously change our behavior or reshape our environments entirely. Punch is surviving the only world his neurology allows him to understand. Meanwhile, the humans watching him are constructing this epic tale of triumph to soothe their own existential anxieties.
Wow, okay, so we are really navigating the boundary between hardware and software here.
Like we have these genuinely shared survival instincts, the cortisol, the oxytocin, the drive for homeostasis. But humans run an entirely different interpretive program on top of it.
Precisely. The foundational drive to find belonging exists powerfully in both species. We just have to be really careful not to confuse our unique capacity to interpret suffering with the animal's immediate biological reality of enduring it.
Which makes Punch's story such a fascinating mirror. I mean, it forces us to examine where shared biology ends and human culture begins.
Absolutely.
As we watch him navigate his enclosure, we are left to ponder, is that universal effort to keep going, to endure the friction and find comfort, ultimately an instinctual reflex or a conscious choice?